Hey, how's it going, guys? It's a slightly sick Nate here. And look, Skyrim is a huge game, filled with things to find and Easter eggs to uncover. In fact, you can build an entire YouTube channel off of that. However, there's quite simply so many that even after all these years, a few minor details may have slipped by some of us. So it's with that in mind that we'll be taking yet another look at 10 tiny references, allusions, Easter eggs, and details that you may still have missed in The Elder Scrolls V, Part 12. Starting off, Grella the Kind is the not-so-kind head mistress of Honor Hall Orphanage in Riften. The game makes it abundantly clear that she's quite abusive to the children she watches over. You're given the quest to assassinate her by a child named Aventus Arentino. The boy recently escaped Honor Hall Orphanage to flee to his old family home and performed a ritual known as the Black Sacrament, in hopes of summoning an assassin to kill her. This is the subject of the quest Innocence Lost, and serves as the player's introduction to the Dark Brotherhood faction. But what you might not have known is that Grella is never labeled as an essential NPC in-game, meaning she can in fact be killed before Aventus asks you and gives you the quest to. Should you decide to kill Grella early, and then meet the Arentino child who asks you to kill her, you'll gain some access to unique, otherwise hidden dialogue from the boy, who will be joyfully stunned that his old tormentor is already dead.
You did? Really? This is the best news I've ever gotten! I mean, I knew the Dark Brotherhood was good, just not that good. You killed the old hag before I even asked. Oh, and please, take this as payment. It's an old family heirloom, supposed to be pretty valuable. It should fetch you a nice price. Thank you again.
Next, Nils is an elderly Nordic cook, working at Candlehearth Hall, Windhelm's largest inn and tavern. When he's not cooking, he can typically be found chopping wood early in the mornings. Nils doesn't say much, and has no dialogue options when approached. Instead, he mostly just mutters 3 to 2 sentences on loop. At a glance, he looks to be the epitome of a generic NPC, and seems to be as boring as they come. Which is why you may be surprised to find out that Nils is actually a fairly successful cookbook author. The book, Char is Pie, a Recipe, which teaches readers how to make pie out of charis meat, the weird insects the Falmer use, was in fact penned by Nils, and can be found in various homes and bookshelves across Skyrim. In his writings, Nils sarcastically narrates instructions, and provides commentary on his own life, adding quite a bit more depth from a character we wouldn't really expect it from. Moving on, while we're still talking about taverns and inns, in Kynes Grove, a small mining settlement just south of Windhelm, you can find the Braidwood Inn. This is a clever reference to the Steve Martin and John Candy movie, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, where two protagonists stay at the Braidwood Motel when they're stranded waiting for a flight. For our fourth spot, The Mysterium Xarxes was a powerful book in The Elder Scrolls IV. It was allegedly written by the Daedric prince Mehrunes Dagon, and had the power to open up dimensions. Originally was in the possession of the Mythic Dawn, a cult of Dagon's worshippers, who assassinated the Emperor and kickstarted the events of the Oblivion Crisis. Well, the Mysterium Xarxes was eventually taken from the Mythic Dawn by the Blades, and stored at Cloud Ruler Temple, where the player could view it. After the events of the Elder Scrolls IV, whatever happened to the book is a mystery. However, in Skyrim, we do get a subtle glimpse at its fate. Inside Silas Vesuvius' makeshift museum of the Mythic Dawn, in one of the display cases lies a tattered page of the ancient book. Silas doesn't elaborate on how the page got there, and chances are, if you haven't played Oblivion, you might not even know what this is. Whatever happened to the rest of the book is entirely unclear, but it's safe to assume that considering the poor state of this page, the rest of the book was either destroyed or its pages scattered throughout the world. Evidently, however, this one powerful page made its way back into the hands of Mehrunes Dagon's followers. Inscribed on it are various Daedric letters, which translated will then read the following, quote, "When I walk the earth again, the faithful among you shall receive your reward, to be set above all other mortals forever. As for the rest, the weak shall be winnowed, the timid shall be cast down, and the mighty shall tremble at my feet and pray for pardon." So, that's encouraging. Halfway through at number 5, in one of our previous videos, we talked about how players who no-clipped out of Skyrim's playable area could see the white gold tower of Cyrodiil. Well, as many of you pointed out to me in the comment section, the same is also true of Morrowind's Red Mountain. If you head to Skyrim's far northeastern border, where the playable area ends, preferably right around Refugee's Rest, you'll be met with an invisible wall. Should you use console commands to disable clipping and continue east, you'll eventually find a roughly constructed model of Morrowind's Red Mountain. Now, due to the way Skyrim's rendering engine works, this mountain may or may not be rapidly flickering in a blinding sort of pattern. But considering Morrowind is located just east of Skyrim, the Red Mountain's placement here does make some sense. It's cool Bethesda would include these tiny Easter eggs in places most players will never be able to see. It often makes me wonder, what else could we be missing? Coming in at number 6, we have the curious case of two orphans, Sond and Botar. I think I pronounced their names properly. These two kids are part of a rare random encounter you may have when traveling in the Reach. When and if you stumble upon them, the pair will offer to point out the location of a nearby Dwemer ruin, Deep Folk Crossing, on your map, for 1 gold. Furthermore, Sand also acts as a merchant for a variety of miscellaneous dwarven items. He is the only child in game who will physically buy and sell from the Dragonborn. After you've dealt with them and left, the kids will eventually make their way to the closest nearby settlement, where they will remain for the rest of the game. I personally didn't come across these children until I spent about 45 minutes loading and reloading various game saves near random encounter points, hoping the kids would eventually spawn. Thankfully they did, and I can attest that this is certainly not an encounter that happens too often. 7th, speaking of orphans, remember Grella the Not-So-Kind? Well, living just outside her orphanage in Riften's markets is an elderly beggar named Edda. Edda's described as being quite insane, and her backstory's never really elaborated upon. However, a look into the game's files reveals that Edda is for some reason actually hostile to Grellid. There's no explanation behind this relationship, and it doesn't seem to be the result of a glitch. But sure enough, if Grellid and Edda are ever together, Edda will attack. Lucky for Honor Hall's head mistress, without console commands or player intervention with spells, Grellid will never leave the orphanage to come within range of the beggar. Some players theorize that Edda's hatred of her stems from her possibly having a child that was taken away to live at the orphanage and become subject to Grellid's abuse. Personally, I think this dynamic is probably just left over from a quest or something which Bethesda intended to explain whatever's going on here, but never got around to it. Either that or Grellid is just older than we think, and Edda once lived at the orphanage. Moving on to number 7, our next one is a bit speculative. It actually comes from a commenter. The Horn of Jurgen Windcaller may have just been made from the Horn of Paarthurnax. Now, it sounds a bit weird, but hear me out. Paarthurnax is missing a considerable portion of his own right horn. No other dragon in the game shares this cosmetic trait. Bethesda did this intentionally, and both Paarthurnax and Jurgen Windcaller were heavily involved with the Greybeards at the time of its founding. The two knew each other. Now, while admittedly the colorization of both horns is different, they're each tinted somewhat green, and I can't exactly think of any other type of creature Windcaller's trumpet could have been made out of. Next, Riften's Bosmer court mage, Wylandria, has an interesting letter in her room. Behind a small bar, you can find a letter titled, Per Your Requests. It's written from the Grand Master of the College of Winterhold. In the letter, the college states that it cannot provide Wylandria with a substance that she calls greenmoot, saying that no such substance even exists. Wylandria asked for a sample of greenmoot, and the college thinks she's entirely crazy. However, players of the Elder Scrolls 4's Shivering Isles DLC will recognize greenmoot as a powerful drug found only in Sheogorath's Plane of Oblivion. It's used in the Daedric quest Ritual of Mania to poison one of Sheogorath's many rivals, and no one who's never visited the Shivering Isles has any idea of greenmoot's existence. So while the college may write off Wylandria as crazy, the truth is, she may know more than any of us. And finally, last on our list, we have the tragic tale of two lovers. You can find this horrifying scene at Hroldop's house, located in southwestern Solstheim. Once there, you'll find a ruined house. However, you can enter through the cellar. Once inside, you'll see two bandits mocking what appears to be a letter that they're reading. Dispatch of them in any way you please, and pick up the letter for yourself. The letter was written by someone named Brynolf, addressed to Hroldop, the evident owner of the house. In the letter, the author expresses great concern for Hroldop's mental health, and encourages him to head back to Skyrim, particularly the City of Solitude. It's obvious that Brynolf cares deeply for Hroldop. Inside of the cellar nearby, you'll also find Hroldop's own journal. In it, he documents his arrival to Solstheim and discovery of the house in which he's now living. He also claims that he's going mad, hearing some strange sound coming from beneath the depths. As the journal progresses, it's clear that this sound is driving Hroldop madder and madder. His grammar begins to deteriorate, and he starts to make claims of trying to find out wherever the sound is coming from, allegedly buying a lot of tools to try and dig down to find it. Well, should you approach the bookshelf of the cellar, you'll find that it actually opens up, and reveals a massive tunnel, likely dug by Hroldop. At the edge of the tunnel lies a bit of a small dwarven ruin, and the body of Björnolf. On his body can be found a cryptic, blood-stained letter from Hroldolf, who advises the man to stay away and not try and track him down. Evidently, Björnolf didn't really care for this warning, and paid the price. The Dwemer ruin itself is quite small, but you can see machines still in operation, suggesting that's the noise that was driving Hroldolf mad. There's also a few ingots and minor trinkets you can pick up and later resell. This seems to be the conclusion of an already tragic tale. However, it gets even more depressing. Near Solstheim's southwestern coast, you can find a boat and multiple chests around it, as well as Hroldolf's body, next to a broken axe and flame Antronach. This whole scene suggests that Hrolbolf was preparing to board the ship and flee back to Solitude. Go home, listen to Bjornolf's advice. However, as he was boarding up, he was killed by a beast. On his boat are a ring and an amulet of Mara, implying he was intending to propose as soon as he arrived back home in Solitude to Bjornolf. Alas, both he and Bjornolf are both now dead. Perhaps they're finally together in Sovngarde. But on that horrifically tragic note, we are going to wrap up. Thanks for stopping by, everybody, and thank you very much for tolerating my very sick voice. What tiny details, Easter eggs, and references have you come across in your travels throughout Skyrim that you think others may have missed? Leave a comment down below. Again, thanks for stopping by, and hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everybody.